We're seeing Bitcoin right now trading at about 30,000. It went up to that price, in part because of the ETF excitement. But we also have now an expiry. It's the end of the quarter. It's the end of the month. It's options time on Friday, and 30,000 is the magical number where you see lots of puts and calls. So there's a lot of interest there. And somebody who looks at this and is seeing the ETF filing as something that's a positive long term for Bitcoin is none other than OANDA senior market analyst for the Americas, Ed Moya. Welcome back, Ed.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to see you once more. So we have all this. We have all this excitement going on with the ETF filing. You are really, I would say, you're very bullish on Bitcoin.
I think I'm very constructive. I think when you take a look, this recent rally has really surprised many. But yet there's, you have to have some caution. The liquidity has been rather low. Some data firms suggesting, we're 20% lower than what we saw earlier in the year. But this interest by BlackRock, when you take a look at the Grayscale lawsuit and the 3-panel judges' comments, it seems that by the end of the summer, we could have some really good news about a Bitcoin ETF. Now, will it get shut down? If so, then we might have the final path that is needed to get that ETF done. I think with BlackRock's, when they file for an ETF, they get it done. They've only missed one ETF, and that was about a decade ago. And then eventually that product was done. So I think there's high confidence, or it's growing, that we will be seeing a Bitcoin ETF. And that has always been one of the key catalysts that people were expecting to trigger the next wave of growth and interest into this space. So right now the interest it's low, and the people that are buying, it's really large accounts. It's the whales. This is not the little retail guy that's throwing in 10 or 20,000 into a Bitcoin position. This is, you're seeing a significant of, larger orders that are, taking advantage of this low liquidity. So we'll see what happens. But I think there's a lot of optimism here that this could be Bitcoin's potential breakout moment.
How big of a market do you expect this to be? Given, we're looking at a recession, a potential recession coming about towards the end of the year. I mean, the probability, I would say it's more likely we'll have a recession than a Bitcoin ETF by December 31st. I'm not saying either one of them is impossible or either one is a guarantee, but if I look at the probabilities, it's pretty high that we'll get a recession, given the way the yield curve is currently inverted, given the confidence and the numbers that we're seeing coming out, and a Fed that seems intent on raising rates to bring about a recession versus just raising rates to sop up the money supply. So is this, what kind of a tide do we expect in Bitcoin to hit? I think you had a number of 40,000 for Bitcoin. What kind of a tide do you expect going into Bitcoin that would raise its price to that level?
Well, I think the macro environment is one that's being heavily debated. I've been in the recession camp for more than a couple of months, and I anticipate that you can't have the greatest amount of fiscal stimulus and monetary support get taken away, and then not expect some hard times once you're really struggling to fight inflation. But there's been a lot of resilience in the economy. Yes, the data is starting to crumble, but I anticipate that this recession is going to be pushed into the first half of next year, and given where the way Wall Street's going to position itself, you're going to see a de-risking moment. Right now, stocks have overperformed. I mean, this has been, I think, for Bitcoin, you probably would have seen 35,000 already if it wasn't for the AI movement. I think that's really taken away some of that institutional interest. But I think overall, you're going to see that people are going to look to invest in beaten down sectors, and they're still skeptical to go into the small cap stocks. So I think when you take a look at how the various asset classes are positioned, crypto is starting to become very attractive here. I think in an inflationary environment, Bitcoin performed terribly during the Fed's tightening cycle. I think as we start to see the end, and I'm in the camp where you're probably going to see just one, maybe two more rate hikes. And I've been fairly, consistent with that view. I've only upgraded my forecast, I think, 3 times this year, which which probably really means 4, because there was a couple times they were on the fence. But I think overall, this is a market that it's going to look for, which asset class can withstand, a recession. And I think right now, given you're seeing it's big money that's going into Bitcoin, I think there's a solid floor here. The biggest concern I have is the dormant money that was institutional, that got in between the 30 and 40,000 range. Are they going to use this rally as the time where they just cash out and head for the sidelines? That's the one thing that's the big concern for me over the next 6 months. But I think overall, there's still a good reason to be constructive here about Bitcoin, and I would not be surprised, given where the peak, when we finally get that peak in the dollar, and as you start to see those weaker consumer spending numbers, and you start to see the unemployment rate tick higher, I think you're going to see Bitcoin is going to I don't want to call it a safe haven asset, but it will have days where it does perform like one.
And does your outlook remain the same if the ETF does not get approved?
My outlook will change. It will. I think the ETF. I think what we need to see is there to be confidence that there is a path towards a Bitcoin ETF. So. If BlackRock gets a no, but if there is still strong optimism that now there's a better understanding on what needs to do to get one passed through, then I'm still constructive. The 40,000 call might get pushed into next year, but I think overall it's not just BlackRock. I think you have other key players. That makes me a little bit more optimistic. So would I say it's 50-50? I'd say maybe it's a little bit better than 50-50, but I'm not saying that this is like a 90% deal where this should be done.
So I have to ask, because of course we kind of do have we have a Bitcoin futures ETF, we have a leverage one that's coming out, we have Canadians have put out Bitcoin ETFs. That it's already happened in many ways. It's already past tense, and we're not seeing trillions of dollars and hundreds of billions of dollars being piled into these things. They're healthy for small ETFs, but it's not been gangbusters. What makes this particular filing? What would make a spot ETF a huge deal for Bitcoin, given what we've seen previously with other Bitcoin-related ETFs?
Well, I think the narrative has changed. I think right now we're no longer fearing regulation killing crypto entirely. I think you're starting to see that the retail world has been fairly dormant, but I think this move, if the BlackRock ETF does get done, it will trigger a lot of high level I think in traders that are looking for what's going to be the next big burst. I think right now the AI trade has seen some exhaustion, and I think you're going to see that the timing of this potential ETF, if it is by end of summer, which some legal experts are anticipating some of these rulings, you could see that could be the catalyst. Taking a look at the environment across, I think, equities and some other commodities, I think crypto is now becoming, it's in the discussion again. So I think it's good timing for the ETF, and this could spur a next big move higher.
Let's move away from Bitcoin and the ETF and talk about the rest of the crypto markets. This morning, Robinhood is delisting Cardano, Solana, and Polygon, as those were some of the tokens mentioned by the SEC in the lawsuits against Binance and Coinbase. What's your outlook on the broader crypto market as more and more tokens are being noted as securities by the SEC?
I think you're going to see a lot of traders will liquidate those positions, and they might just put it back into Bitcoin. So that's also going to be another positive for Bitcoin. But unfortunately, it's not really going to do well for the growth of the cryptoverse. I think you're going to see that the label of being an unregistered security is crippling, and that will most likely be fought, but that's going to get hard. It's going to be hard to get past that, and I think investors are going to be a little bit hesitant as far as betting on those.
All right, Ed. So you're bullish on Bitcoin all around.
Yes.
Ed, thank you very much for joining us this morning. That was OANDA Senior Market Analyst for the Americas, Edward Moya.